Okay, I want to welcome everyone. It's good to see so many of you come out on a Sunday night, on a nice, hot, and humid night here in Pennsylvania. So thanks for coming out. I want to welcome you to the second Building Committee's informational meeting. We did this last year, almost the same time. I'd like to just take a minute and open in prayer. So if everybody would just bow their moments, just got a small, simple prayer I'd like to ask. Dear Father, I ask that you be in this place. Continue to guide this church and our community toward to this church's future. I ask you to please be in our hearts tonight. Please be in our minds. And just be with us in this meeting and our time together. Amen. Okay, I just have a couple things I just want to go over here real quick before we get rolling. This is how we hope this meeting will flow tonight. We're hoping to get done by 8 o'clock. Okay, so we're asking first 45 minutes that the building committee will do its presentation, and then we're hoping that the last 45 minutes or whatever it takes will be for answering your questions after you see what you're about to see here. I'm going to ask if you hold your questions till the end. I want everybody in the room to know that there has no decisions been made yet. What you're about to see is not final. You as a congregation will have a day and a time where we'll all be called together to vote on this. So I just want to make everybody know that the work that we have done to this point is not set in concrete, okay? We're having this meeting tonight just to inform you where we are at this time. We've been working hard at this for a year and a half or so, and so we're really kind of getting into some exciting stuff, and so that's why we're here tonight. My mother, she brought well, at the time, it was just myself and Steve and Dawn to the original little sanctuary upstairs. And we got here around 1964, so I've seen quite a lot while I've been here. But when we got here, Reverend Hammett was the pastor. And as a 5-year-old, I don't know if Dawn was 2 and Steve was like 3, going on 4, but we were young. But at that young age, we cut our teeth on God's Word in that little sanctuary, and Ed Hammett, Reverend Ed Hammett, was the pastor here at the time that he introduced us to God. And so I had found out this morning that he was the longest-serving pastor here. I didn't know that, and I was here during that whole time, and it went like a blink. But he just passed. And so I would like to ask this room to say, take a moment of silence, just say a small prayer for the Hammett family, and moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, thank you. He was a great guy. Okay, I want to just take a look at our vision statement for anyone in the room that might not know what that is. You see it on the bulletin every week, at least I do. It's to know Christ and to share Christ with others. Okay, I just think it's important to say that before we get rolling, and so we want to mention that. I want to take a minute and introduce the people that have been with me these last year and a half. September will be 2 years. So for the people that have been with me for the last year and a half or so, was Larry Bramble in the house? Would you just please stand for a minute, Larry? I'm looking for Heather Dolhigh. She's my vice chair. Mike Faybeck. He's in the house. I know he is. Okay, Mike. And then we got Marlene Grashaw. Hi, Marlene. Deb McAllister. She's in the back there. She's our secretary. Dave Oblock. Steve Pincus. John Schustrick. Darlene Simpson. Francis Thurman. Francis. And then Ed Washburn. Okay, these guys have been, some of these guys have been on a couple of expansions, and so we appreciate their help. And I also want to call attention to, this is our divine presence in the room when we have our meetings. Becky Bramble is serves as our lay leader, and then our fearless leaders here at Community is John Chiampa, senior pastor, and then Pastor Rich Phipps. Okay. So all these people in the room that are standing, you guys can sit down now. Thank you. Have helped me get to where we're at. Okay, I want to talk about our beginning. Luckily, I wasn't here in December 7th of 1872, but I want to set the stage. You know, in 1865, the Civil War had ended. So in that time frame, horse and buggy, horses. And about 7 years later, we had some trustees representing the Harrison City Methodist trustees found a plot of land in Harrison City. They built a small white frame church constructed in the middle of Harrison City, and they went to business under the name of Harrison City Methodist Church. And this next slide gives you a photo of that church. Now I have a pointer. Yeah, here it is. While we're on this slide, I just want to take a minute. That right there is this stained glass that's up here on the stage. And that, as part of our past, that will be incorporated into the new church, this new expansion, okay? There'll be a chapel area, and we plan on using that in that area, okay? Okay, so that's how we started. I remember the building downtown, but it ain't there anymore. It's called Progress. Okay. Our move. I wasn't here quite yet, but in May of 1960, under the leadership of Dr. Hogg, the church officials from down at the old Little White Church had agreed that this place that we're sitting on right here, right now, was a place where God wanted this church to be. So 6 2/10 acres and an existing house were purchased for $38,000. And just put that into perspective, $38,000. Today, that would buy you a loaded Dodge Caravan, town and country. So I don't know how you get a church into that, but that just shows you where we've been and where we're at, okay? Let's see here. We want to talk about the our first expansion. Our first expansion, the first build included the original sanctuary, fellowship hall, Sunday school classrooms. They broke ground on May of 1961. And it was a busy year. And then on December 24th, 1961, we held our first church service here at the present location. That must have been a magical Christmas Eve. So that's what the church looked like right there. And I remember that. I remember that vividly. So that's how we started. Okay, our first expansion. In 1984, June of 1984, under the leadership of Pastor James Patterson, we broke ground to expand our original sanctuary and to add more Sunday school classrooms, create a new church office, additional parking. And our first church service was held in December of that year, also in 1984. Something about December. Just a comment. That was what the church looked like after the second expansion. But I'm an 8:30 a.m. traditional service guy. I've been pretty much all my life. Nothing against the contemporary worships here. But I guess all I want to say is, I know I am. I'm thankful in 1984 that this church had the wisdom to put that extension on, because 31 years later, the traditional services every Sunday use that space, 8:30 and 11 o'clock. So we want to, just keep that in mind. That we appreciate their forethought. Okay, moving on. Around 11 years ago, we were outgrowing the first expansion, so we decided to get into a second expansion. In October 2001, under leadership of Pastor Dell Smith and Associate Pastor Chris Livermore, the building committee presented plans for a second expansion. And this build included the new large multi-ministry room, the room we're in tonight. Kendra might not think so, but a new large kitchen. We had new offices for staff and some meeting rooms. We broke ground on April 13th, 2003, and we finished that project November 21st in 2004. And I know we have a photo, and that is the way the church looks today. By the way, a lot of this history that I'm reading to you, I got out of this book here called The Vision. I don't know if anybody in here has a copy of this, and then if anybody here does not have a copy, there's copies of this available in the office. So if you stop by there, they'd be more than happy to give you this book. So a lot of the stuff that I've been showing you and telling you came out of this book right here. It's very, very easy read. I think I had it read in an hour. And everything in the book pretty much the way I remember it. So it's a good little book. Okay? I took some quotes from the vision that I just thought I just took two out of the book, but I just thought they were both pretty, they said a lot. So the first quote that I took was from the Forecast Committee in 1979. And they said, quote, "As a church family, we must provide growth opportunities for the whole person, physical, mental, and spiritual." And I know that that's what makes me a complete person. So I just thought it was a good quote. The next quote. This was on our consecration when we were, getting ready to use our new second expansion. This quote came from Bishop Thomas J. Bickerton, and he was here for the night that we, used the building for the first time. Anyway, he said, "You want to see God? I want to see God. You want to see God? Look around this room. You want to feel God? Reach out your hand to a neighbor. God is in all of us as we sit here tonight. God is all around this place. God is in this place." Okay? Just thought that was pretty strong words there. Okay, before we get into the, looking at the new church, this group that I just showed you earlier in the night, early in the meeting. We had some things we wanted to share with you that we thought were needs of the church. We had a bunch of needs that needed to be addressed, and with the expansion that you're about to see, as far as drawings, I want to tell you what this expansion addresses. We're going to have a 800-seat worship center / sanctuary. This new sanctuary worship center will include a baptistry. There'll be up in the back side there'll be 2 rooms on the back side of the sanctuary. One will be a chapel that will seat 100, and then the other one will be I guess an adult meeting room, which will seat 100. And any time that space is needed, they face the sanctuary, and you just open up the door. It's going to be a sliding door, and so you can use that as additional space. So you can, the floor space will be about 400. And then you'll have 200 at the back of the sanctuary. And then there'll be a balcony that will also sit 200. So that gives you a total of 800 folks that can come here and worship and catch a service all at the same time. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I got all that. Okay, this will also give us the ability to switch quick and easy from traditional to contemporary. You know, we went out and saw a bunch of churches, and we're kind of unique here at Community, where we have a traditional service and a contemporary service. And they're both vital and they're both important, and we wanted to make sure that this new space, we could do both and continue to do both long into the future. Okay? We're going to have hopefully good, convenient parking, good traffic flow. Some things will be kind of changed around a little bit. Dedicated and secure children's ministry area. There will be an indoor play area. We will have a dedicated youth ministry area. There'll be a dedicated adult ministry area. There'll be dedicated office space for our pastors and staff. Fellowship space for informal gatherings. We will have covered entrances coming into the church for those days where it's raining and it's snowing. And I don't know if that sounds familiar, Darlene, but thanks for the help. Anyway, so that's just some of the things that you'll see here in a little bit. So I guess we're ready to look at an exterior drawing. Oh, wait a minute. I'm rushing. Okay. Come on up, Beck. Sorry about that.
He was jumping ahead. I know you were getting really excited you're going to see drawings. I just wanted to be able to give you a little bit of background to tell you how we got to this place. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a lay leader. I'm Becky Bramall. I've been lay leader for a couple of years here at the church, and in that capacity, I've had the privilege of being able to participate firsthand with the groups and the hardworking individuals who have been involved in the process to bring us to this point. That process began 2.5 years ago, which is hard for me to believe. It was in January that an initial exploratory committee was created, a study committee, and that committee, together with the now current building committee, have put together an incredible amount of hours, time and effort and research to get to the point that we are today. The study committee was composed of key members from the church body itself, not just church leadership, but people who had been long-standing members of the church. And I'm here to give you a synopsis of the work that they did in that time frame. In January of 2013, the study task force was created in accordance with the Book of Discipline, Essentially, those are the laws that govern the United Methodist Church. And the Book of Discipline dictated that this study committee, be charged with analyzing the needs of the church and the community that we serve, to project the potential membership with an average attendance, that we document our church's ministries, and that we develop an accessibility plan so that people who had disabilities could have free access to our church and the programs that we provide. The last one was essentially the easiest one. Accessibility is governed by civil law. The American with Disabilities Act governs how you build a structure, having access and ramps and elevators and those kind of things. So that was an easy one. First, we were to analyze the needs of the church and the community. And so we took a look at the demographics of the communities we serve, not just Penn Trafford, but Manor, Trafford, and Penn boroughs, Murraysville, North Huntington, and the school districts of Penn Trafford, Norwin, and Franklin, all growing communities. All of this growth was demonstrated by the demographics that we looked at in the census from 2010, comparing those numbers with 2000, and looking at the consistency of building permits in all of those neighboring communities. We projected the growth of our church membership by looking back and seeing what the church growth had been in the years since we had done our last construction. In 2003, our average attendance was 450 for a weekend. That was in 3 services. By the time the committee began meeting in 2013, 655 people were attending on a weekend, and that was in 4 services. In 2013, the number had jumped to 700. And today, our numbers from 2014 are 803 on an average weekend. It's apparent that without growth, we would quickly maximize the facility that we are currently in. We don't have enough space, and Pastor John has pointed this out, that if every member of our church wanted to attend on a weekend, we couldn't hold them in the building. Even if they were kind enough to apportion themselves to different services, we just don't have the capacity to meet the needs. The third charge was to look at the ministries of our church, and that was an incredible experience. Looking at the spiritual teams that our church has developed through the years, from worship through ministry and fellowship, we've created disciples who actively participate in evangelism in our communities. With a church structure of church council and a board of trustees and a finance team, we work with the pastors, the staff, and the support teams to provide opportunities through not less than 110 different programs in our church. And that doesn't even mention the programs that we provide for the community, a place for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to meet, a place for AA to meet, support groups like families who suffer from debilitating illnesses. From the A to Z, from the ARC ministries and children's programs to the youth programs, mission trips to Uganda and other places throughout the world, divorce care, grief care, feast, just to mention a few. That study took 6 months to complete. And when they made their recommendations, the study committee presented to council specific recommendations, not only that the needs of the church existed and that the ministries of the church were bursting at the seams, but also that we had a need for very specific building requirements. We wanted to look at a worship center that would accommodate both the traditional and the contemporary worship settings with an easy transition. Anyone who has participated even a little bit in taking the stage and the chairs and resetting this room during the course of a weekend, particularly during Lent, know how incredible and what a task that can be for man-hours. We needed a worship space that was going to be much larger than the ones that we already have. And as Mike mentioned, we started with a foundation of at least 400 with expansion to 800 with overflow capacities built in. It needed to be flexible enough that the transition between contemporary and traditional worship would be quick and easy. There was a desire for a small chapel to provide a place for intimate worship, whether it be a funeral or a wedding or some other kind of very personal service. We wanted to have a large reception area outside the worship center so that people might have the opportunity to have fellowship before and after services, when they drop their children off for playgroup or preschool, or just somebody in the middle of the day needing a place to find refuge and have a cup of coffee and maybe a moment of prayer. And so all of those things were built into the recommendations. It was hoped that we would have a dedicated youth center, that they would have their own worship space, that we would have a secure children's space, not only for the Sunday school programs that met on the weekends and the Kids for Christ program, so that we'd make sure that we always matched the right parents with the right kids, but also that it would be a secure place for the ARC program to use during the week, so that if we had any concerns or any threats to our service to those children and their families, that the building would be secure and had limited access to the public. All of the recommendations, every one of the committees, I believe, built in a request for storage, because if anyone has tried to cram those chairs and tables into that back little room, you know that it is a puzzle and it only goes in one way. And so there was a need for storage and the ability to house all of the equipment and things that we need to provide the ministries that we do within the church. The recommendations of the study committee were presented to church council in the early fall of 2013. They were accepted, which led then to the election of the existing building committee. And they began from their first night meeting every other week for the year and a half that they have been in place. Now, I say a year and a half, and I say twice a month, and I mean that sincerely. There were some times they met twice in 1 week, and then there were periods of reprieve. I think at one Christmas, maybe there were no meetings, or maybe only one in the month of December. There have been incredible hours of that team going forward to try to incorporate and to try to determine what the next steps would be to take those rough ideas of a wish list and put them into a practical brick and mortar kind of setting. And so the building committee began by visiting churches who had recently done additions or construction to look at the kinds of things that they were able to do well in their capacity. We were surprised, I think, to find that many of the churches only do contemporary worship. And naturally, because we wanted to maintain the traditional worship that we have had in our church, it was important that we incorporate that into a facility. And so it was a little bit hard because the facilities that we looked at didn't provide for that. Nevertheless, we made sure that it was one of the things that we were going to pursue. We started visiting the variety of different churches. I think we visited 4, and then the Gateway High School, because we were told that the auditorium had a setting that might be appropriate for us to consider the shape and size in terms of our worship. After many meetings, we made a determination that we were then begin to explore how we were going to have it built. And so the initial interviews were with architects. We contacted Jeff Schroeder, who had originally designed this building and had done a proposal for the existing structure to be for the second phase of this structure, which would have been the worship center. We contacted several builders, people who had done consistent church building, and tried to get from them an idea of what they would charge to present us with the drawings to go to the next phase. And then finally, we met with a design build team, the McKnight Group. The design build team does just what they say. They not only design and use their in-house architects to design the facility for you, but additionally look at meeting the needs of your ministries. A very Christian-focused group who is consistently looking at our ministry needs first, and then building the structure to accommodate it second. In addition to the meetings that were going on, early on in the process, Pastor Rich, Jay Newport, and I had an opportunity to go visit a seminar that was being conducted by the McKnight Group at a church in Ohio. And it was in the process of that experience that we first encountered, or at least I first encountered, the McKnight Group, and was totally impressed with the Christian focus of the build, talking about the way the church was a tool and an opportunity for you to conduct your ministries. Not that you build the church around the people, but that the church was a tool to enable you to do the ministries and the focus that you needed to do. At the same time, in the fall of 2014, our church finance committee was looking at the possibility of whether we needed to hire somebody to run the capital campaign that will be necessary to raise the funds for this building. They examined our church structure and the volunteer nature of most of our church and determined that it would probably be necessary to hire a campaign finance committee of people in order to bring this to fruition. And so they have, in the process, interviewed several different people and made the selection of TLC. I meant to check his name. Bob Hallett is the gentleman that runs that program. And he has begun his initial meetings with our church finance team in order to begin that process. During the process of making the selection of the builder or the design build team, one of our team members, Ed Washburn, and I had an opportunity to visit a church in West Virginia that was not only constructed by McKnight, but was the capital campaign in that particular church was run by TLC. And the church, without exception, we met with the pastor and with a variety of different people that we ran into at the church during the day of our visit. Without exception, they had nothing but praise to say for both organizations. And the church was really interesting because it was like a mini version of our church. They had completed a multi-ministry room, and they had done the next phase, which was to create a sanctuary, a worship space, and then convert the old sanctuary into space that was being used by their youth and other ministries within the church. Unanimously was McKnight selected to be the builder, the design team builder. And so in the course of the last several months, we've had the opportunity to have them present to the building committee a variety of different drawings. Not only did they come to meet with the building team for a couple of hours, but they would come in the afternoon at 2 or 3 o'clock and meet for 3 or 4 hours with the staff of the church to find out whether it would meet the needs of the ARC program, whether it would meet the needs of the pastors, whether it would meet the needs of the community of the church. And always taking into consideration all of the recommendations that we were making and tweaking the building from those first drawings. We hope to have a meeting on Tuesday. We hope that drawing will be a little bit closer to the final one, not really the final one, because naturally, when you all have the opportunity to see it, we hope it will be very close to what you all think we need, because I can tell you that it has taken us a long time to get to this place, and hours of work by very, very dedicated people to try to have their input. We have not always agreed. Our building committee has had moments of discussion. I won't say any of them became heated, but I think it was always that people were very passionate about the input that they wanted to have. So before I turn it back over to Mike, and he will have the opportunity to then show you the drawings, which we're all very excited about, I share some history with Mike. We were neighbors growing up. This has been my church home for 50 years, which makes me a little older than that, I guess. I've been privileged to have had some kind of participation in the last two builds. I am as excited about this build as I was about anything that we've ever done. We are ready. We are more than ready. And to paraphrase some of the music from last night, if God is for us, who can be against us? Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. You can tell she does some public speaking, huh? She's a little better than I am. As I was sitting there listening to her presentation, I realized I never introduced myself. She's introducing herself. My name's Mike Kachasik, and I am the chair of the building committee. So I'm sorry, I was kind of ready to get rolling and kind of run into this. So I guess right now we're ready to look at some exterior drawings. Okay, I want to point out with my pointer here. Okay, this is what you're looking at. This space right here is the original church that we're in right now. That space represents approximately 18,000 square feet. Okay? This space here, and then up here, and then of course the covered entrances. That's going to represent approximately 29,000 square feet. So you can tell this is going to be a big addition. Okay. Okay, I want to take a minute and kind of just take a walk around the building, per se, so you can see what you're looking at here. One of the first things the McKnight Group noticed when they came here was there was no, we'll say, front entrance per se. And it's amazing that they picked up on that. Pastor John has a real funny story. Sometime you'd have to ask him about his first visit here when he was assigned to come here to community. So what we're going to do is right here in this little cove that exists right now between MMR and the original sanctuary is going to be offices for the staff and the pastors. Right here. We're going to fill that in. Okay. If you look here, the parking lot is extended, and how we got that extension, and it's two-sided the whole way down. There's a line here. It goes over, goes up, and comes over. I know that is the Wilkins property. They had a son, Brian Wilkins, was about my age, and was in Boy Scouts with him. But we had the opportunity to buy the Wilkins property, I'm going to say sometime in 2004, after we were already started on our second expansion. So we're going to utilize that space. So everything kind of gets moved over to the right. So we have the new office area, and then these parking places. Okay, now the entrances to we're still kind of like talking about how that's going to flow. But on this particular drawing, you can enter in both entrances, and you can exit to the left and to the right in both spaces. A little bit different than what we have today. Okay? As you come down along here on the Wilkins property, there'll be some more parking. Right here, we're going to have a covered entrance. And that'll be the way that you access the ARC programs and all the dedicated children ministry space. It's kind of hard to see on this drawing, but I think somewhere around here will be an indoor playroom that will be used by that ministry. As you come down around the back side of the building, we're going to have a truck dock back here that a tractor trailer could back into the dock, and we could service that the truck. Okay, on the back side of this wall here, and this was a long flat space. Our builder recommended that we put in a little alcove here. Now, from an architect's point of view, he said that breaks up that long, flat back space. And I don't know if we can jump to what that alcove will look like, Lee, but that's what we're looking at. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. And that'll be that alcove that be built in the back side of the building. Okay, everybody see that? Okay, as we come around the building, there's going to be a couple of little cafes set up on either side, so you can get a cup of coffee on the inside and come out if it's a nice pretty day. You sit out there and enjoy somebody's company and have a cup of coffee here. I think this parking's pretty much the way it is now, maybe a few changes. You come up here, there'll be some more parking here. We have a covered entrance. This will be the main entrance coming into the sanctuary area. It'll be covered. And then as you come up here, I want to show this property line right here. That is the parsonage that's on our property. Now, of course, in this drawing, you don't see it there, but we have drawings where that parsonage is there, not there. Nothing permanent has been decided about that parsonage over there. Staff parish would like to keep it so they could offer it to the new youth director. So June the 2nd, which is Tuesday, he's coming with a new set of drawings that will show the parsonage on the property again, okay? So I don't want anybody to be alarmed that there's no parsonage sitting here. So there'll be a slight change probably where this entrance and exit will be moved over a little bit, but we'll find out on Tuesday. And that's why nothing's really set in concrete yet. We're still moving things around. But the last 3 or 4 drawings that we've been looking at, this is a good snapshot of what the outside or the exterior of the new community will look like if we go forward with this expansion. Okay, question for my building team. Did I catch it all? Did I miss anything? Okay. Okay, I wanted to show you next here a little bit of interior type spaces and how we've sliced and diced the church. Okay, this is first floor. I had to take a minute and orient myself. It's first floor. There's that covered entranceway. This will be a gathering space here. A lot of tables like we have here in the room. Sit a couple chairs. You'll be able to get a latte and sit there and visit with somebody else here at the church. This will be our main worship space that we were talking about. The floor will hold about 400 people. And like I tried to describe earlier, in the back up here, there'll be two breakout rooms. This one on the left is going to be a chapel. We're going to incorporate this stained glass from the old church in Harrison City in that area. We're going to take the stained glass up in the sanctuary area now and also incorporate it in the chapel. And then the other side will be just kind of like overflow space. During the weeks, it can be adult meeting room, just whatever we need to use it for. Anybody in here in the choir? There's going to be a space dedicated to you and the bell choir for practice. And this time we promise we won't take it from you. Okay, that'll be dedicated to you. From what I remember, you got a restroom here on this side of the sanctuary. a huge restroom here on this side of the sanctuary. This particular color here, this will be where that playground, the indoor playground space I was talking about, but this particular color here will be that dedicated, secure space for our children's ministries. Okay? You just won't be able to walk through there like we do today. You know, once the children are put in that area, they're going to be pretty much inaccessible. I think somewhere up along here, you'll check them in and check them out. This is our new kitchen. I think right now it's about this size. So we're going to kind of expand it out. Be a walk-in freezer. I'm not a kitchen guy, so I don't know what all's going to be in there, but I know that walk-in freezer was a big wish, walk-in cooler. This is the room that we're sitting in tonight. That'll go pretty much untouched. You know, maybe some cosmetic touches. I know the lighting can probably be updated. This space back here, if and ever we have a guest speaker, a guest Christian band, there'll be a space back here that they can have to themselves before they take take the stage. You can see where they have mechanical rooms. That's where you put your heating, your air conditioning type stuff, your light panels. I think that's about it. Okay, let's go to the second floor. Okay, I had mentioned earlier that there will be a balcony. And there'll be 200 seats up here also for overflow. So with the balcony, 400 on the floor, and then 2 rooms underneath that balcony. If we should, on a single evening, we should be able to have 800 people enjoy whatever activities going on for that evening. You're going to come up some steps or something over this way, and then there'll be another gathering space with more tables like we have here, with a couple of chairs. So before you go into the sanctuary, the balcony area, you can sit and have a coffee. Okay, so what you're looking at here now is classrooms that will be dedicated to the youth. It's the older kids. I'm going to guess middle school. It's been a long time since I've been a young kid, so but our youth, I'm talking middle school, I'm talking high school age kids. This space, this color here, will be dedicated to them. This is our existing sanctuary the way it is, so they'll have their space toward the front where they can have their own worship experience. There'll be some meeting rooms along here, so like through the week, if they get together, they'll be able to break out and have time in smaller groups. This is the office space we showed you in the first drawing here. So when you pull into the front of the building, you'll be able to find the pastors or anybody that's staff. They'll be up front. Okay. Believe it or not, that's a year and a half's worth of work. Is there anything I'm missing, guys? Anything? I'm sorry, Heather. Right here? Okay, so they'll be able to be used by adults also. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at the interiors, the first and the second floor. I think I don't know when do you. Okay, we have this is kind of neat. This was put together by the McKnight Group. Just a look at what the church could look like after it's finished. That's the MMR room there. That would be the new entrance. That's all glass with a couple of outdoor cafes on either side. Our covered entrance. That's the back side of the sanctuary, worship center. There's that alcove that we were just looking at. I decided to shut up and let it sink in a little bit. Okay? I'm a little biased, but I think it's beautiful. When I see that, I just can't believe that we can have that here. Okay? Okay, I'm not sure. It's your time, Heather? Okay. Okay, Heather Dolhigh will talk a little bit about money. She's really good with figures. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about how we can make this a reality.
All right, for those who don't know me, I am Heather Dolhigh, and I am on the building committee, but I'm also the church treasurer. So Mike is right, I am pretty good with numbers. So the burning question, I'm sure, is how will we pay for this? It's beautiful, and that's wonderful, but holy smokes, how do we pay for this? So there are two main funding sources for this project. The first will be a bank loan. And a little bit about a bank loan. A bank is prepared to give us 4 times our average annual income. So that number is about $7 million that a bank would give us today. Additionally, we will embark on a 3-year capital campaign, and we are working with TLC Ministries, as Becky indicated, and TLC has a proven track record of getting somewhere in the 3 times average annual budget range. So, erring on the side of being conservative, we've looked at a number of anywhere between 1 to 3. TLC has actually exceeded that 3 number just in a lot of their builds. So, that being the case, we can add an additional $1 to $3 million over the course of this project to our bank loan. So that puts us in the $8 to $10 million range in terms of where we can get funding from. Conveniently, the next question is, what does this cost? Right now, our estimation from what is currently on paper, and that is just ink on paper for the moment, but that range is in anywhere from $8 to $10 million. So we expect this project to cost $8 to $10 million. That beautifully corresponds with what we are capable of raising. So, and hopefully we could exceed that number and in terms of what we can raise. So that is where we stand on the finance side. The big question outside of really what will it cost and how will we pay for it, those are kind of very fixed metrics, is can we afford it? And the simple answer is yes. There is just no other way around this. And I think about Ephesians 3:20, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is work within us. This church has a pretty historic track record of being aggressive with our debt service. We have paid off every one of our past mortgages before their time. Our current mortgage balance is $197,000, $197,357.78. That number is actually going to go down fairly substantially because we have some money to apply to that from our Lenten dinner profits. So We fully expect that that mortgage will be paid off in early 2016, like first quarter 2016, possibly even by the end of this year, which is amazing for where that started. And just to make that point by comparison, where we started, when we built this addition that we're sitting in now, in 2014, our budget at this church was $400,000, and we took out a loan for $3.5 million. That is a ratio of 8 3/4 times what our budget was. We bit off a big chunk when we did that, and we'll have it paid off in a couple of months. By comparison, this project in the $8 to $10 million range compared to where our budget sits today, which is about $1.5 million, will put us somewhere in the 5 to 6 1/4 range. So we will actually be taking off less of a chunk than we did the first time around. So it's a big number. It sounds really big and it sounds really scary, but there's a lot of math behind those numbers that I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty for until we really have a set number. But when you look at the comparison of what we've been able to do with our past debt, I think I can confidently say that we are capable of handling this. And by God's grace, we will, and we will be able to be as aggressive as we have been on all of our past debts. So that is a little look at the financial picture. I think at this point we are good for questions. Is that right? All right. And I'm sorry for the screaming baby. He's mine.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, like Heather said, that concludes the presentation. I don't know if there's anything you guys would like to see one more time. The outside movement video, the video that we have, or anything like that before we... Okay, I'm getting yeses. Lee, Susan. Oh, by the way, I want to thank Lee and Susan for helping with the audio and video tonight. So they're up there on the balcony. They're hard to see, but yes, we appreciate you very much. Okay, I was wondering if we could show that little, where you walk around the church, the little video. I have some people up front here that asked if they could see that again. Here we go. Isn't it beautiful? To see that original sanctuary and that white steeple, I think to myself, it's just beautiful. Okay, we want to open this up. We ran a little long, so we want to open this up for questions. I'm sure there's got to be some questions out there.
Could you give us your name and then go ahead?
My name is John Hines. I have two questions. One, what is the purpose of the trailer truck in the back? And two, did you give any thought for future funding for like some theater group, since you're going to have this big facility, to maybe turn around and lease out that maybe on a weekday or whatever for additional funding to help subsidize some of the income and burdens which we're going to have with the $8 million?
Okay, to address the first question, the trailer truck in the back, having that dock area, If we'd ever have a Christian band here or somebody that has lots of equipment, that dock gives you quick access to the stage, and then they can bring all that equipment in that way, and it would be real easy compared to dollies and you know, that kind of stuff. So that's why that's back here. And then I guess we really haven't thought about renting the space out, but I guess that could be a possibility if we go on with the expansion. That's definitely you know, something that could happen. Up front here.
Hi, my name is Pam Ramsey, and I was wondering about, is it a green space as far as heating and cooling and utilizing the different aspects of the building so it's economical to do that? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, the lighting will be the latest and greatest LED. Most of that will all be LED, which is very energy efficient, the best there is. It's yes and no. I mean, there's things that you could do to have it completely 100% green, but then it just adds costs, and you just don't see any benefit from that. But a lot of the stuff that you saw up here on the screen will be the newest, you know, the newest and latest heating and air conditioning systems, lighting systems. All that will be, you know, by the government would be considered green.
Here we go, back here.
Thanks
By
for
the
being-
way, the building committee has been assigned to do what you see today. So there are probably some questions that wouldn't be building committee questions.
My name is Kent Simmons. With a single worship space, you will no longer be able to have the concurrent services, the contemporary and the traditional service, like we have now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't get the beginning part of
With a
that.
single worship space, in the design, you'll no longer be able to have the concurrent services like we have
Okay.
now, a temporary and a contemporary going on at the same time.
Okay, I
Is that
got
right?
you. Okay, what I hear in our discussions, that we will continue to have a Saturday night contemporary service, but it will be not here. It'll be over there in the new worship center. And then we'll have a contemporary service on Sunday morning, and then we're going to combine the two traditional services at 8 and 11, try to pick a time somewhere in the middle that meets, and we're going to probably have one traditional service. This is kind of what I've heard on the drawing board. Okay?
All services will happen in the new space. All services
Correct.
will happen in the new sanctuary. This will go back to being a multi-ministry room.
Rose Kaufman. Just two things. According to the drawing, it looked like the children's area was actually bigger than the sanctuary. Is that true? And what are we estimating how long it will take for the construction of this?
Share that slide. We have a
Yeah.
timeline slide.
I don't, you mean the new sanctuary? Because I can't believe that the children's space would be bigger than the new.
I think a point to note about the children's space, Lee, I don't know if you want to pull that floor up. The area, the majority of the box area at the bottom right is dedicated children's space for both the ARC and our children's ministries. They will utilize the same space. The other space is nursery and cry room area kind of outside the sanctuary. And then there's what looks like the hallway in the other spot is open space. It's kind of check-in area and entrance, and then there is an indoor playground. So while that appears to be more space, I mean, the reality is we have a lot of children, and we have a lot of children activities, and there are room sizes. You can only fit so many kids with so many adults into rooms. So, and because we do run a state-approved program with the ARC, there are some ratios that we have to be considerate of. So that is a factor in room sizes that has kind of led us to that. But, and that includes hallways and bathrooms, and there's a lot that's happening in that storage. There's a lot that's happening in that children's space that's blocked off that you're not kind of seeing the detail. There's a big worship room in there for the Kids for Christ to happen in.
Right here is the fellowship hall that they operate in here. This space along the back walls, rooms that they're already operating in. They might gain some space here. This is underneath the offices up above, so they definitely gain that space. This hallway is really kind of a hallway out here already. And then this will be the indoor playground, and of course they'll gain that space.
Yeah, can we look at the time frame slide, Lee? Again, this is not set in stone, but this is just a kind of very rough projection based on where we are in the process right now. So we would look to begin our final design of these, whatever drawings we end up with, in the fall of this year. We, at an early point, would begin construction the spring of next year, and then once the sanctuary is completed, we can move on to the remodel of the existing space. And so we'd have a total project completion in the fall of 2017, and that's very rough as of this moment.
But that gives you an idea.
Hi, I'm Nancy Moser, and bouncing on the children's areas and stuff. So we're not going to have any outdoor playground anymore?
We
Like
are
outdoor green?
looking to find where that best fits on the property right now. We're hoping
Okay.
we'll see that on the drawings
Okay.
this week.
And then if you were to choose to want to we won't have any kind of cry room, so you won't be able to take your own
no, there
child
will be.
in?
Mhm. There
You'll
will be.
in the sanctuary?
Nope,
So
it
you
will
can
be
still?
outside. Sorry, Lee, can you bring that?
But I mean to see, like you could still see the service like we have now.
It
Like
will
if I
be-
wanted to go in.
It will
and-
be broadcast into that room
But you
via a
can't see.
TV.
Okay.
There will not be a window. And we looked at both options, to be truthful, Nancy, and this was a better use of our space.
Phil Kachasik, the fourth wheel, or the unknown brother.
He came along much later.
I just have a question. The long-term idea of the church, is it to have one pastor or two? And that'll lead to the second part of my question after that gets answered.
It's always, we never really discussed it, but I don't think we ever thought about going back to one.
Okay, then why are we getting rid of a service on Sunday? Why not do an 8, 10, and 12? Keep the traditional at 8 and 12 and have the contemporary at 10. Not understanding why to eliminate one, because I think what you're going to do is alienate either the 8:30 service or 11 and maybe lose some membership because of that. And I know that's always a gamble to do that, but hopefully that wouldn't happen, but just wanted to know if that's what you guys were thinking.
That's not a building committee decision, just to put that out there.
Well,
don't-
it may not be a building committee,
Yeah.
but it's part of what this is going to be, and I just want to know if somebody has the answers to those questions.
I think that's so
I
far,
defer to
that's so
pastoral
far out there
leadership.
yet, Phil, that I don't think we're, as far as, I gave you just a quick synopsis of what I had heard in some meetings, but none of that's really,
All right, then I'll give you a building committee
Well,
question.
Phil, let me address
sorry.
that. It is our belief, Pastor Rich, myself, and some of the other church leaders, that going forward, this congregation should have one pastor who is the lead, one pastor who is preaching at all the worship opportunities. And what we're doing now is workable, but it's unusual, and it's probably not ultimately sustainable. I think we need the cohesion of having one vision, one proclamation, all the congregation kind of focused in the same direction. And what we're doing now, it's an interim step, and it's leading us into the future, but it's probably not the way to go in the future. I don't know of any other church that's doing what we're doing. Typically, the churches that are vibrant and vital today have clear leadership, and they have that one vision and one purpose. To that end, it is likely that the traditional congregations will be asked to consider changing the way they worship. Our thought now is that the traditional service will be the earlier of the services. Down the road, who knows? We will have enough space right now that we can accommodate all the people that we have and what I would consider expected moderate growth in the next few years after the building is complete. In the future, we may very well have to add additional services in that space. And what that will look like, we don't know. But you are right on the button when you say that this will be a challenge for the people that are at 8:30 or 11, and if that's your preference beyond any change, then that's going to be difficult. I'm hopeful that we are far enough down the road of discipleship that we recognize our mission is to know Christ and share Christ with others. And if that means adjusting my schedule to come at an earlier hour or a later hour, or even coming to a different style of worship, you know, if the time is sacred to us, like it is now, 8:30 or 11, those things have not been determined, but we must not step aside from the issue you've raised, that it's going to require a sacrifice from some folks. And whether it will be the 8:30 or the 11, or whether we'll do something in between, that has not yet been determined. But I hope that folks will begin thinking and praying about, you know, in the world of discipleship, changing an hour or two in when I worship is not a huge inconvenience compared to martyrdom in the Christian history. You know, it might be inconvenient. It might not be our great preference. But if we are here to reach the world for Christ, those kinds of adaptations are not out of the question. And this congregation's been very adaptable in the past. I'm very appreciative of how we have adapted to such things historically, and I have every confidence that we'll manage that with as much grace as we can muster.
Thank you.
You had
John.
another question.
Yeah, thank you for the openness to the question, Pastor John. When you show the traffic pattern, it's my opinion, and I think Paul can actually speak a little bit on this. I do not think having exit and entrance that close together is going to work. And I don't even know, I think talking to Paul, he said that I don't even think you guys would get, PennDOT would even grant such a traffic pattern. It's just too close from where you come in to where you exit the other. There's just not enough room there to allow a proper in and out of the traffic. Just to keep that in mind. I think you should keep one side as an entrance, one side as the exit. So.
Okay, I think the Tuesday night's meeting, I think there's going to be a change in the way that's laid out. So we thought so too. So, okay, good question. Anybody else?
Yeah,
There'll be a microphone coming to
There you go.
David Good, with a single facility, how are you planning to make the transition from the one service to the other service, and what type of seating are we going to have with that? For instance, the contemporary service, the band is up front, the instruments, they're the center of everything, whereas in the traditional service, most people probably don't even want to have them in view, and so on and so forth.
Okay, what you can't see, well, first of all the band's equipment is going to sit on like movable platforms, the drums, you know, all the equipment, and basically you'll be pushing it off. And what you can't see with this drawing, but off to the side here in the back, there's a storage place that will have like a garage door on it. Garage door. You lift that door up and all that stuff is just pushed on these flat carts. They'll walk onto the stage. All the electric for the amps and the electric guitars, all the electric will be in the floor. They'll just plug right in once it's moved out and put in place.
And lots of curtains.
Yeah, and curtains to hide a lot of that. But so basically that's how we're going to transition between services. Okay, all that stuff will just be pushed off on wheels, put into a storage place. That storage space will be, you know, the door will be shut and locked. Okay, what was the second part?
Can I add on to that? With the
Yes.
alcove that we mentioned too, it has a very traditional feel, and I think we had talk of for the contemporary service, we would be able to sort of cover that to give it a different feel, so that there is that transition as well. I thought I'd add that.
It'll look very traditional.
Yes.
That was really a big part of all of our discussions, that current and traditional both exist, and the facility will look as if you were at a traditional service or at a current service.
Yeah, can we get another picture of the alcove?
That
up on
alcove
there?
is at another
Yeah.
church.
It's
That's a church
beautiful, yeah.
McKnight built with an alcove.
Yeah, that's an existing
Yeah,
alcove.
our alcove, I don't think was that big, but, you know, that's what we're thinking with the curtains. You'll be able to make that traditional, look very traditional.
Yeah, for contemporary, curtains just going to come across there and hide that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Seating. The builder has recommended to us that we have individual seating, better than what's in here tonight. But that's what most of the new churches, new construction, everyone's going to the seating. It's less expensive than the pews, and it's just it allows you more flexibility with your floor plan. If you have a conference, any type of meeting there, and you have food in the front, you can move chairs out, bring food in. Just gives you.
Also of note, I'm not sure how many here are aware, but our pews upstairs break on a regular basis. And pews are not constructed the way they were many, many years ago. The pews in the back of the sanctuary actually are of better construction than the pews in the front. And so today's pews really, our Thursday morning work crew is what keeps our pews up and running in the front of the church, because they're repairing them on a very regular basis. So that's something to consider, is that those pews, the pews today are not built the way they were.
Good question.
Kyle Eisenhuth. 2 questions. With the parking, I feel like it got smaller, and I feel like we don't have enough parking to begin with now. So what are we going to do about parking?
Well, that's it might be an illusion, but I think we have 264 spaces on this drawing. I can't remember what the drawing showed. Yeah, there are more spaces there than exist right now.
And out in that kind of left field there, it looks the same, but there are more spaces in that spot as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Like right now, if you come on a Sunday church, there's about 10 extra spaces just here in the front. I can't go around and tell you exactly what the numbers are, but if you're just looking at the front here, the parking up there right now starts about right here and goes to the left.
Mike, if I can just remind you, there are more spaces. We don't have the final details yet, but the biggest challenge we have is we have 2 services run at the same time. That will no longer be true. So parking actually will be easier. And we do have some plans for the long-range plans of the church that there may ultimately be some more property available that we might use where the existing 130 parsonage is. There are some options that as the church grows into the future, we are looking at that. There are requirements about how much parking is needed, and we meet those requirements. But without 2 services at the same time, we're going to be okay, except it will still be a challenge at the high holy days of Christmas and Easter, and we're going to have to think about that. But initially, it should not be a challenge. We should be in good shape.
And then my second question was, as far as the chairs go, you can get chairs that look like pews, correct? Like they'll look and function like pews, but they'll be chairs and come apart, right?
Well, the builder that we selected, they've built over 250 churches. They're going to help us with that part as far as the interior decorating of it. So I guess we're not really at that spot, but I know that they've recommended to us that you want to use chairs in that space, but what type of chairs? They look like pews. We're not even there yet. But thank you.
Hi, I'm Valerie Costco, and woohoo, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, where's that coming from?
Okay. Not
Okay.
up there. Okay, so I wanted to ask if you had talked about or had planned for any space for a church library.
That's a great question. Yes, is the short
Great.
answer. That will actually more than likely be part of that gathering space that's out there. Mike will get his little pointer and show you what we're thinking. Other wall, actually, I think. One of those walls.
Just push on that little button.
All right. Somewhere right in here. This is actually going to be a really beautiful area. We're hoping to have a fireplace here and some other stuff. The cafe will kind of be down here. So we're hoping to have a library area that works as part of this space so that people know it and can see it easily.
Hi, I'm Kathy Rajenovich, and I see that there's not a covered entrance on the right-hand side, but is there an entrance to get into the church from those parking spaces?
It is actually covered. It's kind of hard to see. Again, there's a little tiny, well, that's the arc entrance. Go up, there's a little tiny overhang right there.
Okay, so
it's not like a drive under.
Right, but we can get in from the parking
And you won't be
spaces on
standing
that
in the
side.
rain, correct.
Okay, and then in the youth space upstairs, is there going to be like a kitchenette and things like that?
So a little coffee
there's a little coffee space up there. There's also some loft space in the youth that you can't obviously see on this, but there is, under the bigger part of the sanctuary, we are intending to create a little bit of a loft space in some of that space for a youth meeting room. But
Would there
will
be like a sink and a
yeah,
refrigerator? And
yes,
things
there will
like that?
be a kind of a kitchenette type setup.
Okay, great.
Great questions. Anybody else?
There, I got it.
Okay.
Mike Tusay. I was just curious how the construction would affect the current worship through that year. So, like, would we be in the normal spaces until the new sanctuary is finished and then kind of transition there while the construction of this area happens?
You said it well.
Yeah,
that's exactly the way it'll
what's gonna
happen. That'll all be being built back there, and we'll still be using the spaces we have now. Once that sanctuary worship center is open, ready to go, we all move.
Yeah,
And
there
then-
will be sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
The contractor that the McKnight Group, this is what they do. They build churches. So we trust them. They know what our issues are, even with children's space. So I think the remodel will be the harder part to live through for a little bit. But they are experts in this, so we trust them to help us through those issues.
One more question. Kathy Rajanovich again. The space where the gathering space was for outside, where there were tables, would we
Yes.
consider putting a roof over top of that to make sort of a pavilion space that could be used if we had a church picnic, or even the kids could use that as a covered space? Because it would be
Another
way
great
easier to do it
question.
now
Well,
than to
that's
do
a
it
great
later.
suggestion, and we meet with the builder Tuesday, so we'll throw that at them.
I will tell you one thing that we are considering possibly not putting a roof on the further space up is for things like outdoor events like Blessing of the Riders and other things. We have a giant wall that we can broadcast on. So we could do movie night or have other outdoor events in the spring and summer when the weather is nice, and we basically have a blank canvas to use. So concert, we can have an outdoor concert area and that kind of thing.
Yeah, believe it or not, I've had some meetings on a Wednesday night here, and one time I joked with Pastor John. I just said, man, there's no rooms in the inn. I mean, this place through the week is a very busy place, and we believe that every day of the week this building will be used.
Lee Learman, once it's built, has it been determined how much it's going to cost to maintain?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
We obviously anticipate that our utility budget will increase. We anticipate just a general increase in our budget. There's more space, there's more cleaning, there's more utilities. There will ultimately be more staff, no doubt. So it's just kind of the nature of it. However, we also expect a pretty substantial increase in our attendance and membership. And if you guys remember, the way we set our budget is based on what people anticipate to give. So we expect that we will see a growth, and that growth will flow into our budget and our giving, and all of that kind of ties back into itself. So we don't have exact numbers on that, but we believe that this congregation is faithful and it will work. It always has.
Question?
Yeah, right here. Don Kachasik.
Oh, Don.
Hi, Mike. I have two questions. Can you go back to the classroom space for Sunday school? Can you go back to that slide? Is that the only space for Sunday schools now in that little classroom? Or are we able still to use the downstairs?
No. That is actually, the classroom spaces that you see that are labeled classrooms are what's upstairs right now.
Correct.
The 5, 6 room, how many ever rooms are up there. That is kind of a dedicated adult space, but what you don't see represented on this drawing either is all of the seating area that happens around the gathering space and the 2 rooms in the back of the sanctuary that are available for classrooms too. So we've looked at this and we've talked about it quite a bit, and Elizabeth is actually a great person to speak to that because she's in charge of connectional adult stuff.
We also talked about using the balcony.
Well, the children's space, is that going to be able for Sunday school?
Yes, for children's Sunday school.
I'm looking at the drawing,
Yeah.
I'm counting at least 4 or 5 rooms not mentioned for
Yes.
Sunday school.
The
are
children's
current.
space will be for children's Sunday school. The youth space will be for youth Sunday school. So those kids that are meeting in some of those rooms, they're meeting in adult classrooms. Those will go back to being adult classrooms now. So
And my other question is kind of simple. As an usher, has anyone thought of the flow pattern that's going to happen for communion and collecting offering when you have the sanctuary broken up in a balcony and the floor type setting?
You just figured you'd get it done.
Can we get money tubes upstairs and have them just send it down?
like a regular old bank teller line
Well,
there.
we're going to have to recruit. We'll have to recruit some more guys to participate in that ministry.
Yes.
And then there'll be people taking care of the balcony and people taking care of. I can't remember the drawings. I don't remember how many owls are there on the floor of the sanctuary or the worship center. I can't remember.
Yeah, since we're using chairs, it can be whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, whatever we want.
There is an offering. There is like an usher's room in the back of behind the scenes kind of thing, though, where that stuff is just as a heads up.
I have one other question.
Sure.
I used to play on the softball team, and we had trophies and stuff. Has there been any thought, like in that gathering space, can you build in a trophy
My
case?
husband would love that because his current trophy from last year is sitting in the
Yeah, we have the
fellowship hall.
dartball team that wins trophies, and they're sitting on windowsills, and stuff's up in the attic. Is there a place we can
I'm
display
sure we
that?
could find a home for them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll talk to them Tuesday about maybe incorporating. That would be a very easy fix, and I think that would be nice. We've always been fortunate. We've had some athletic people come through the church, and we've won a lot of championships over the years and all kinds of things. So we're gifted in all ways, so that would be nice.
Sue Martin, I was wondering if there's any additional elevator needed or a change to the existing elevator.
Well, no, there won't be. There's nothing required. The elevator that we put in our last expansion will meet all of the requirements by government requirements. One of the things we will have is there'll be a I don't want to call it an elevator, but it'll be a lift. Yeah, I was going to say I didn't want to call it an elevator, but it's a lift that if you would have somebody in a wheelchair and they want to be baptized, you can get them up onto the sanctuary, up onto the altar platform. So that has been thought about. If you have a wedding and you might have a disabled veteran come home getting married, we'll be able to get him up there to his vows, that type of thing. And on the drawings, it's over in this area somewhere. But the existing elevator will fill any needs, requirements that we have.
Yeah, there's going to be handicapped seating spaces at the top of the balcony, so they'll be able to take the elevator up to the second floor, navigate the entire second floor, and attend service on the balcony if they wish to.
There's a ramp.
There's also a ramp in the children's wing, so that if we do have a child who, needs the ramp, that's available too, or if the child's parent needs a ramp, that's available too.
Becky Hollerman, hi. You had mentioned in one of the things that one of the requirements that was brought up was storage space. Could you enlighten us on what's been added in the plans?
Yeah, there's lots of storage space in this new layout. We're going to have storage space underneath the altar and the platform in the new worship service. I don't think you can stand it. I wouldn't be able. I think it's going to be like about 4 foot high or something like that. But there'll be some storage there. But there's storage planted everywhere. I know that there's storage kind of in these areas that doesn't show on the drawings. Like I said, there was storage here for the contemporary, the band's equipment, but
There's lots of storage upstairs.
upstairs. Yeah, help me out here. Good.
Oh, yeah. There's some mezzanine type storage space in the back of the church, which you can't, or in the back of the sanctuary area, which you can't see here. They're kind of above those, yeah, right in that
Yeah,
area.
it'll be like second
They're
floors.
further over, actually. Kind of in the wings.
That's right, I remember that now. Like over the room where the choir practices.
Correct.
That'll be storage. So yes, there's been lots of, in all the expansions, it's always been classrooms, storage, So those are definitely key items.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask about the playground.
Okay.
Would it be reused, like just relocated, or?
Yeah, the one that's outside right
The current
now?
one we have currently.
Yes, that's what we're working to find a place for it.
But would that stay outside?
Yes,
That's an
there will be
outdoor
there will
playground.
be an indoor playland, and then there will be, in the indoor playland, we'll have like two kind of age-appropriate areas. So there'll be a younger kids area and a bigger kids area, and then we will try to find a new home for our current playground that's
And I think
outside.
that indoor playground will be all new equipment.
Yes.
That'll all be new. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, I'm glad they came tonight.
Hi, I'm Steve Kachasik, alias Candyman. So there's no basement underneath any of the new part?
No.
That's part one question. Part two was the shed out back. Is there any outside facility to house the manger and all that other stuff that belongs inside?
Yeah, I know we've thought about that, but I can't remember. I'm going
The shed
blank.
stays.
The shed will.
The shed and the prayer garden should remain
Well, it's too small.
untouched.
It's too
The
small.
The shed is too small.
It should be a big building to house all that stuff. Ed's manger sitting outside like getting weather.
Yeah,
Is what I'm trying to say.
we're actually hoping that some of the mezzanine storage that's being created, that's kind of high up and a little bit more difficult to get to, can hold a lot of that stuff that we don't use except once or twice a year, for a season. So, yes, but we will definitely evaluate.
Yeah, because I know
Deb
we
can
don't
look
do
at
our
what's
own
in the shed.
we don't do our own lawn no more, but we still have stuff that Debbie does. We're going to need wheelbarrows. We're going to need rake shovels. There's still going to be a need for an area with a building outside, not that little shed though.
We will. Thank you. I think we will make sure we talk about that
Yeah, we'll
some more
talk
then.
about that Tuesday.
And then one more thing, you didn't show like any bathrooms upstairs either. Like, we still have access to that one that's in the hallway.
Correct. Yes, that's a good
Yes,
question. We won't
yes.
send you upstairs with no place to go.
Yes, yeah, there's bathrooms upstairs that's adjacent to that balcony. You can't see them there, but they're there.
That balcony actually opens into the hallway. It's kind of hard to see, but next to that little blue box, or light purple box, whatever color that box is, yeah, that opens back into the hallway, which would take you back to the bathrooms that are there.
Okay.
If I could just interject one thing about storage, since it came up a few times.
Sure.
One thing that the churches that have used the McKnight Group have all commented on is that they are wizards at using space, that there is not an inch of wasted space, that if there is an area that could be used for storage, they find a way to utilize that for storage, that they're masters at that.
Well, Master, I want to tell you,
Thank you.
This addition that we had here, you could see that we didn't think of storage at all. Everything is jammed in where it shouldn't be. In the staircases, everything like that.
Well, my good and faithful servant, we're thinking about it.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Jay Zalesnik. Could you address issues about technology and communication as we move forward in the new project, how those are going to be current and moving forward with technology in the future?
Wow.
Yes,
Yes.
I
I think you're
Dave.
better suited. Yes.
Thank you. we are going to be prepared so that people can hear the Word of God well throughout the sanctuary. It's also going to be what's called rider ready. If we have a Christian band come in, they have a list of requirements, and our system will meet or exceed those. All of the spaces will be set up for audio and visual export to other rooms. For instance, the crying room that we spoke about. We're going to be utilizing all the technology at hand to do that with the newest and most efficient way to do it. So yes, that is big on our list. It's high on our list.
Terry Lang, I have a question about the Lenten fish fries. And would the gathering space be like an overflow? Because you know how crowded it gets.
Yeah,
Pastor John says yes.
Okay.
I think, I don't want to speak for Kendra, but I think she would love the opportunity to be able to, I mean, she's here, she can speak for herself, so never mind. Yeah, no, I think that she would be happy to have the opportunity to feed as many people as possible.
Yeah. There's a lot of spaces there that we could use for overflow. Our biggest concern coming into those is takeout. We can drastically increase what we do here during Lenten dinners. We will have a space to care for takeout completely separate. So there's lots of possibilities in that new space to grow that area of ministry.
Yeah, real quick, I just want you to know, I've been in a corporate world all my life, and people make decisions in boardrooms, and then they pass it down to the people under below that's supposed to implement it. And some of the stuff that you've had to implement over the years, you think, who in the heck thought this up, okay? But I want you to know that the builder usually gets here anywhere from 2 o'clock p.m., and all day long he meets with staff. Staff is having a lot of input in what they'll use, you know, someday as a tool for all the ministries of this church. And so, you know, the musically, you know, children's spaces, you know, Frank Audie had a lot of input, you know, the ARC program, Kendra, they're all getting a say. And so this should be done right, okay?
Kathy Rajenovich again. Off of the youth space, is there an outdoor space? So like if the kids, if we wanted to do like a fire pit or have something for the kids, is there anywhere other than taking them down around? And
No, not at the moment. The youth space does have its own entrance from the front of the church, though, so you guys would be able to go right out that door and could, you know, be outside in relative ease, but we have not, there's not like a dedicated outdoor youth space.
Heather, I just wanted, the chapel, you said like that would be so that that could be additional space for the sanctuary, but when it is to be used as a chapel, we need to turn the chairs around, and like where will the...
Yeah, so I think it would be oriented in a little bit different setup when it was the chapel. I think initially that room will stay a chapel and not be used. It would probably be the last room used as overflow seating. So we would need to fill the balcony, fill the floor, and fill the 100 seats in the other room before we were using that room. But again, the beauty of chairs is that that lends itself to working in both scenarios.
David Good again here. Are there any plans to put any of this on the church website, or is it still too tentative to put out there? Particularly like these layouts and the 360 view.
I think we talked about that.
Yeah,
I can't remember what we discussed.
This is being filmed tonight, so I think this will be made available, this entire presentation and conversation that's happening right now. So,
But we have talked about putting that stuff out on the web.
Rob Learman, over here.
Hi, Rob.
I think I understood, but now I'm not sure I do. In the sanctuary, where you have the alcove, that will be what I would call the front of the sanctuary, where the musicians would be, where the pastors would be, correct? That wall behind them is made out of what? Is it solid or is it glass?
Probably block.
yeah, it's brick or ephes on the exterior. So no, it's a solid wall. There will be potentially some sort of stained glass in that alcove, but that's the only
poles to the exterior that will be in that wall. Does that make sense? And it may not actually be an actual window. It may be faux that from the inside appears, but outside isn't. So.
Rose Kaufman again. Two questions. In looking at the shape of the sanctuary, I was a little surprised that it's not circular, because I see so many churches adding on a circular shape. And then is it going to be a flat like it is now, or is there going to be like levels so everybody can kind of see?
Well, I'm just going to repeat the things I heard from the builder. Believe it or not, them circular sanctuaries that you see, they were popular around early 2000s. And so if you see those, that they're already 10 years old, okay? And then he told us that in construction terms, that every time you turn that and put a beam and you put everything that you need for it, it's costly to build a circular structure. So he kind of talked us out of out of that type of look. And plus he said that most of those type of things were done 10 years ago, and not that they're out of date, but they're dated and okay.
And is the floor, it's just all one level, everything's flat?
The floor will be flat, correct. And again, that is a recommendation from the builder as kind of their expert opinion, because it allows that room to have the potential to be used for more things.
The floor is flat, but the balcony is inclined and on a slope. So you can pick and choose.
How far back is it from the front, though, to the back of the church? Because I'm hearing what you're saying is it's hard to see over. If you're lower and the platform is elevated, I'm assuming the platform is elevated.
The platform is elevated.
And it will actually be elevated higher than like this platform. So they have worked out those ratios to assure us that a flat floor with the height of the platform that we're getting will work, that there really isn't a bad seat in the house. So I don't know what that distance is specifically. The platform actually takes up a large space in that sanctuary box that you see, to be really truthful. It takes up a fairly good clip, and it's angled in such a way, there are some curtains that create some angles so that the platform doesn't go the whole way across that you would see from start to finish. I don't know if that makes, if I'm communicating.
And I missed the lighting in that sanctuary. Is it
The
glass?
distance is less than what we have upstairs. From the edge of the platform to the last row, Deb just informed me of this, it's a lesser distance than what it is in our current sanctuary upstairs.
And are there, I'm sorry, I missed the glass part of it. Are the windows to that sanctuary?
There are no windows in that sanctuary as of right now. They're
Only at the front?
correct. In that alcove, there will be some light. And the doors, the exterior doors, the exit doors may have little windows of glass like that at the moment.
So when it's really hot in there, I'm sorry, there's no cross ventilation, we're going to depend totally on
Air conditioning.
And air. Okay.
We're getting a new air conditioning, good system.
The worship space is going to be designed in such a way that when you walk in for traditional worship, it is going to be the best traditional space you've ever been in. And when you walk in for a more modern worship service, you're going to find yourself in the best modern worship space you've ever been in. And you'd never know otherwise. And that was the biggest ask in that part of the building to the McKnight Group. And they've hit it out of the park in the design. We also want you to know that when you're in there for worship, it's going to be an intimate feeling. You know, you're not going to be sitting 100 yards back. And so even though it's not built in the round, you feel like you're close to whoever's speaking or whoever's singing. And that's intentional. We want that fellowship and that relationship to be built right into the very architecture of the building. So when you come in, you'll feel like you're personally involved. And so hopefully that makes up for not being in the round, but you still feel like you are in a sense.
Can I ask my last question and then I'll shut up? I'm hearing a lot about we're going to have this loading dock and all this about Christian bands coming in. Unless I miss something, that's not something we really do here. So why are we putting all this effort into some Christian bands that may or may not come here? I'm not real clear on that.
It'd be an opportunity to do that. It'd be a new ministry or a place we could go. We don't do it now because we don't have the space. We don't have, we can't do that now. But contemporary music is huge. They've got radio stations popping up on the radio now playing it. You know, there's a lot of bands out there. You know, Mercy Me is a good Christian, and they go around. I know over in Greensburg, I don't know what the Word of Life, I guess. They get those bands in there all the time.
Rose, I think whenever we did the ministry needs evaluation prior to this building team, when it was the exploratory committee, I believe that was one of those ministry needs that was identified, to have a facility that we could expand that ministry and we could bring more people to our church and to God, okay, ultimately, by having concerts. So that's part of the reason that's incorporated in there.
That has been done in this church. It's been done in this very room. But now that we use this room for worship, we don't have the opportunity to do that because you can only make so many changes to this room in a 24-hour period.
And I'd just like to add one more thing to that, too. Just from a contemporary worship perspective, I know that our team just got to go to Amplify to see Elevation Worship, and they did a whole conference there, and we gained so much from that, and we're able to apply that to our ministry. So if we could host something like that here, it would just be wonderful for, I know, my team, when we're up there, to be able to have that option to learn from others and to just better learn how we can minister to our congregation here, and if we want to go out and minister in other places. There's just such a learning opportunity there, too.
I think it also lends itself to conferences and seminars to be hosted in that room, and sometimes those folks bring things with them. So this is just kind of giving us a facility that will allow us to do a multitude of things, some of which we aren't currently doing.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time on this one thing, but I got to say, since I did help arrange some concerts in this room in the past, I have, on an annual basis, been approached by choirs, other bands, other entertainment, of people that wanted to come to our church that are kind of on a tour and do this kind of thing. And I've had to turn them down over and over and over because we don't have the facilities. This room is the most utilized room that either of our pastors have ever seen at any church. We have just maxed out the capability of what this room can do. So I've been turning things down for years.
Hi, Marcia Phipps. I just want to say, this isn't a question, but I just thank all of you for the time that you've put into this. It's amazing. And I also want to say, I also want to just take a second and tell you what an awesome church you are. You're so loving, so inviting. It's so wonderful to be a part of this church and to see the excitement that this is going to bring, to be able to bring so many more people in to experience what we have already experienced here. We've come to know God in this place, and we get to have a whole new place to invite so many more people in to have that experience and get to know Him and have the joy that He brings in our lives. So, thank you.
Thank you. Rose, I envision our fish fries being so big that Kendra has to order fish by the pallets, and the pallets of fish will come in through that dock back there. So there'll be multiple uses for that area.
It'll start as one pallet, then it'll multiply.
Correct. Correct. But this is all good stuff.
I was wondering if you had seen any internal drawings or renderings yet, or when those might be generated, and to see the layout of the sanctuary and so forth.
Yeah, we have seen those as a building team. We have created this kind of block diagram to give a very high-level view of where things are, because what is actually happening inside of that space, specific lines for closets and walls, isn't finalized yet. So we don't want to show and share with everyone else until we really know that that is pretty much what we think it's going to be. So soon. We do not have any interior elevations yet, no. Other than some pictures that they've shown us of kind of conceptually what they're aiming for, we don't actually have a, and we will share those when we have them.
Which brings us to an excellent stopping point. Let me just tell you about process. We have paid McKnight for what they've done for us so far. We have made our down payment with TLC to help us put together a campaign. We could stop now. You know, we could just say this is where we think the dream ends. I hope we won't. What we need to do next is get a go-ahead from the congregation. It includes the district building and location. Our district superintendent, by the way, Pat Nelson, Pat wave, and her husband Paul are with us. They've been with us all day. They were here this morning. The district committee on church building and location needs to review with us our plans and the plans, the needs assessment, and also a funding plan. But ultimately, this congregation will need to see specific drawings with all the detail and all the exact cost estimates. And they will have to then decide that this is what we want to engage to do. Folks, we have a very aggressive plan in place. A building like this will take at least a year to build, and it can't be started after late spring. And we don't want anybody to feel like we're pushing. But we want you to know that the most aggressive track is that we would very soon, in the next couple of months, come back to you with a detailed plan and a desire to hire McKnight to do the engineering drawings for construction. We haven't engaged them to do that yet. We wanted you to get an idea. This is the basic plan. We need to take those steps, and we need then to, once we have a number in mind, and it's probably going to be in that $8 to $10 million mark. I'm still praying that it'll come back a little. And we're talking to them every time about how to make sure that we don't build more than we need, but that we don't build less than we need. And then the congregation will have the opportunity to see all the specifics and say, we are going to go forward with this, and then it sets into motion a chain of events. That next phase with McKnight will produce all the drawings that you're talking about. There's much done today by computer where you can virtually see what it will look like on the inside. You can take a tour, but that's expensive to do, and they're not going to do it on the investment we've made with them to this point. So this is great, and we're so thankful for you to come out and hear this. We may want to do this again when we get the finalized drawings, but at this point, the building committee is available to you. In fact, you can come to building committee meetings. You know, we try to list them in the order of worship. We hope if you come, you'll be quiet. But if you have something that's passionate and burning in your heart, there's no closed meeting in this congregation. You're welcome to come. You can come to the finance committee meetings. Well, you better come. You're a member. And these are the things that we will need to be doing. And I'm hoping, by God's grace, that we can move pretty aggressively here and make these decisions. If we can't, then we'll have to step back, and it'll push it back a year, because you can't start that project, you know, late in the year. So I don't mean that as a threat. I just want you to know we're aware that this is going to happen pretty quickly if we're going to get it started at the earliest possibility. If that doesn't happen, then it'll just take more time, and we'll have to wait until we can get everything lined up. But there's a lot that has to be done, and you'll hear the details. No decision has been made yet. This is all just still theory. But I believe God's led us to this point. You should get your newsletter tomorrow, the day after. Read what I wrote, because it's funny. I don't like writing for the newsletter, and I was under the gun time-wise, and I sat down and I wrote something and I handed it in, and then later when it was printed, I read it and I thought, that's pretty good. And it's not like it was me writing, you know, it just kind of flowed. And I handed it in, and Carol printed it. It is pretty good, isn't it, Carol? Becky, did you read it? It's pretty good, yeah. We are at the crossroads is what I wrote. And what happens next is something that's a little bit frightening and maybe a little intimidating, but this church has been at that crossroads a number of times before, and each time we have chosen to go forward in the direction the church felt it was being called. God has blessed that moment. And we have been the recipients of the grace of those who have gone before us. And I trust there will be another generation coming who will say that of us. that we stood at that crossroads and we chose what we believe God's calling us to do. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I don't know that we can go further tonight. Are you happy with where we are? We went a little past the time we suggested, and I want to go home and see if I have any new pictures of my granddaughter. It's cute. They sent me one today of her sleeping, and I got my car keys in my hand and started out the door. And then I remembered I had this meeting tonight. So I'll be satisfied with a little FaceTime here this evening. Where'd our leader go? Michael.
Okay, Pastor Rich Pitt.
The only threat about the time frame comes from Carol Helsel. She has threatened to show up at night with her shovel and dig. But that's the only threat I've heard thus far. But friends, before we close, let me give you two numbers. 220,000. 220,000. According to our Bishop, Tom Bickerton, in the next decade, 200 United Methodist churches in western Pennsylvania will close their doors. 200 United Methodist churches will close in the next 10 years if we follow the trend they're on. We're not one of those churches. We have caught God's vision, we have caught God's power, and we are moving into God's preferred future. And I'm super excited about where this church is being led and how we're following. 20,000. Our cleaning team, they noticed that this building is going through more paper towels, toilet paper, vacuumings. We're just more aggressively used than we've ever been in our history. So they took it upon themselves to count people in a month that walk through our doors. Almost 20,000 people in 1 month. A couple of those weeks were fish fries. They didn't add a huge amount, and those are big numbers, but compared to 20,000, that wasn't a huge part. It was just, we're that busy. 20,000 people. When we build, that number will go up. I'm excited about what God is doing. I hope you can see that vision. I hope you also know that staff and building team are always available to you, and we will talk to you, we'll listen to you, and pray with you anytime. So please, if you have questions unanswered from tonight, please feel free to bring those anytime. We'd love to talk to you. How about if I close with a word of prayer, and then we'll show you what it looks like to clean up after Current every week. Let's pray. Jesus, you've been perfect all day long. You started last night in worship, and you carried through worship this morning, and Jesus, we're thankful that you've decided to plant a church, a body of believers right here on this piece of property. And you've said, continue to build my kingdom. Lord, we read your word, and we don't hear anywhere in your word where you say, church, stop. Stop growing. Stop spreading the good news. Sit down, back up. Lord, what we see is you saying, unto the ends of the earth. Father, until we know that every person that we can reach has been reached, may we never cease to storm the streets, to launch out of this building, to be a people bearing so well the good news of Jesus our Christ, until the whole world hears. And so, Jesus, show us what a launch pad looks like. Show us what a facility we need to come in, to learn, to grow, to worship, to fellowship together. But then, Lord God, ultimately to be launched back into a world that is absolutely desperate to know who you are. Jesus, don't let us rest, and don't let us stop, and don't let us grow fearful, but let us move forward, trusting that you will lead and you will empower and you will equip. God, thank you for the building team. Thank you for staff that's putting in extra hours for all this work. Thank you for this church body that steps up and steps out time and time and time again. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the privilege of being called yours. Lord God, thank you for this night. And now wherever we are headed next, would you take us there in your power, and may we be about your work even where we go next. To you be the glory. For Jesus, we commit all these things to you and pray them in your holy name, Christ. And all of God's people said, amen. Friends, chair stack 7 high. Feel free to help if you'd like.